Cool. Welcome to the Cluster API provider AWS office hours on Monday, the 30th of May, 2022. A reminder that we abide by the CNCF Code of Conduct, so please be kind to each other. The meeting notes are currently shared in this window. I will, if anyone new joins, I will paste the link into the window so that they get to see it. We've already added ourselves to the attendee list, so that's good. And if there's any topics for discussion, please add it to the agenda. I have one to add. As there's only, I guess, 2 of us currently, 3 of us in total, we can just, instead of doing the raise hands, we can just talk. But I guess if we get a sudden influx of people, then we could just go back to raising hands. So I will put my item after yours, Abhinav, because I haven't typed mine out. The floor's yours, Abhinav.
All right, sure. Let me just share my screen. Okay, the screen sharing is actually disabled.
Cool, let me just sort that out now. Brilliant, you should be able to go now.
Yep, thanks for that. Yeah, I hope it's visible right now.
It is, yeah.
All right, cool. So yeah, apparently this is I won't say the final documentation, but I would say it's almost there. I think I just need your inputs about like what else I could improve in the documentation itself. And before that, I would also like to provide a quick recap of the tests that I've performed on the action itself, and how I would provide like the demonstration for this. So the approach that I'll be following right now would be specifically for the GitHub application, because apparently we cannot trigger workflows on pull requests created by GitHub Actions, right? So just to make that working, we either need to like reopen the pull requests created by GitHub Action bot, or we just need to use a user's personal access token for creating the pull request, or we can also use like a bot user account. Alternatively, I've just used the GitHub application approach here because that sounds more like appropriate for this kind of an action. And so this was the test that I had performed recently. And it was the periodic test. So first, as usual, we had the GitHub API, which was basically just checking whether or not the file is up to date, like the AMI build config. So let me just go through the documentation first, and then maybe we can just come up with, we can just understand what else is going on behind the scenes. Because I guess, Richard, you're not aware with most of the internals, although I have demonstrated a lot of things to set up, so she might be aware of it as well. So yeah, earlier, I believe we were only following the manual approach for building the AMIs. And in my own personal testing, it took me about like 5 hours to build all the images for all the supported operating systems and to copy them on all the supported regions. And it was quite hectic just to keep my own system up for that long of a period. I think that's not feasible for a lot of the people working along with this project, right? So we just had to do this. We just had to come up with another approach that could be automated. And so this is that approach. Hopefully we can also get this integrated with Brow. As of now, we haven't really like found a way because there are some restrictions on the Kubernetes SIG organization, due to which we had to just stick to GitHub Actions for now. And there are even some more restrictions in GitHub Actions that I will just touch upon at the end, possibly.
So, Abhinav, just on that one point before we move on, You said there's some restrictions with PROW. Are they documented in this?
So the roadblocks, in the roadblocks, I've documented both the issues that we faced.
Perfect.
Yeah, most particularly the Kubernetes SIG organization apparently has like some enforced policies, which for which I think we just need to request the permissions to execute workflows with specific like permissions, right?
Cool.
So for
Brilliant.
example,
Sorry. So for Pro, since we didn't get the AWS account for publishing AMIs, that's why we didn't test things in the Pro. Other than that, I don't see any blockers testing this in the Pro other than asking for a separate account. But for GitHub Actions, it is not working. We are at the last time where we were asking you, Richard, GitHub token doesn't work. The API keys doesn't work. The personal account keys doesn't work. And we couldn't figure out what it was.
And this is when you realized it was something at the organization level restricting it. Because it worked in my org, didn't it, when I tried it in a separate org, I thought, did it? I can't remember. It's such a long time ago, to be fair.
Yeah, so your example was on your company's org. It was working, and it is working in Abhinav's own repository. So it should be something, because everything we have on Kappa repo as permissions, we have on Abhinav's repo, and it is working there. So the only logical explanation, it is the org level restrictions.
And that's more difficult to change, isn't it? Yeah, cool. Sorry, I distracted your description, Abhinav. Sorry.
No, that's perfectly fine. I will also like quite much elaborate on the other roadblock that we faced, which was specifically caused by GitHub itself. And that is like we cannot execute workflows on pull requests created by the bots themselves. So there are a lot of like a number of alternatives to like overcoming that issue. But yeah, the one method that I chose was GitHub applications for certain reasons that I'll also touch upon later on. So yeah, these are all the supported operating system I think we all already know about and the regions. So yeah, first we will see the workflow itself, like the flowchart of the workflow. We have this periodic workflow, and please mind it, I'm using workflow because this is specifically for GitHub. Otherwise, I would have used jobs if, let's say, we had implemented this in Prow itself, right? So in the periodic workflow, we are basically watching for the latest Kubernetes releases. And specifically, we are only dealing with the last 3 minor releases, like the last 3 latest patch versions of the previous like minor releases. And whenever either one or all of those last 3 minor versions have an update, then we will check whether or not any pull request has been opened by the Kappa bot already. So that might be an issue because if it is the case, then we cannot update the existing like head branch. It might even lead to some conflicts. So just to deal with that, we will leave it up to the moderators. We will leave it up to the like maintainers to first verify whether or not we can proceed with merging or closing that pull request. And once that is done, let's say if no such pull request exists, then we will modify the existing AMI build config .json file, and we'll look into the format of that file as well. But once this file basically stores all the versions that we have to like account for when we are building the AMIs. And once we proceed with this, we will first modify, and then we'll see if the head branch already exists. If it does, then we will delete it, because obviously there is no other pull request there, so it has no purpose just to lie on the repository like that. So we will delete that branch, and then we will proceed with building the temporary AMIs, right? And if it does not exist, then we can just directly build with directly proceed with building the temporary AMIs. And by temporary AMIs, I mean that these are just testing AMIs. We will have a prefix that would be like test hyphen prefix in front of these AMIs. And these prefix will actually help us in identifying which AMIs were built during the pre-submit job, and then we can later on proceed with the cleanup job, and we can fetch those AMIs and delete them later on. Although the cleanup logic is not yet implemented, but that is for like another action item that we can deal with in the future. So once the temporary AMIs have been built, we will see if that is the case, if all the tests have passed, let's say there is no error, then we can just simply proceed with merging this pull request, and then that will trigger the post submit workflow. Now, in case of post submit workflow, we will have like the actual AMIs that we will need in the future that will also publish in the book. So these AMIs will then that would be the ultimate output of this like entire workflow. And once that is done, then we can just proceed with the periodic workflow, because ultimately we'll always be looking out for the latest versions, right? So let's say even if we had just executed this workflow, we had built AMIs for like in the past, let's say 30 minutes, and then there is another release in the next 30 minutes, then we will again build the AMIs for those latest updates. So yeah, this is pretty much the idea. This is pretty much the entire flowchart of how the things work in this entire action. And then we have the components. We have this GitHub workflows folder, which will consist of all the like YAML configurations for our workflows. We have the periodic YAML here, the periodic workflow. Then we have the post submit, and we also have the pre-submit YAML. So post-submit and pre-submit are quite self-explanatory at this point. Pre-submit will be executed when we create the pull request, and post-submit will be executed once we merge the pull request.
Can I say something here? So this pre-submit and post-submit job will be moved to Pro once we have AWS client. So this is just for testing purposes. We have them as actions right now. Oh.
Yep. Yeah. So even in the steps, I think I can just show this. Yeah. So all of these steps can be later on converted into a script that we can execute in the Prow environment, right? Given that we already have these set up, this environment AWS basically means that I have like credentials set up in my environment in the repository. And I have to access these credentials using this environment. Although we can also use GitHub repository secrets, but that is the first approach that I came up with. We can like modify it as we wish later on. But basically, in essence, this is the content that we would need if we want to migrate it to Prow. And these are all the environment secrets, like the environment variables that we will need to take care of once we like migrate to Prow. Yep. So then let's proceed with the CI/AMI folder. So this folder will basically consist of all the custom functions, the GitHub action code, and the Prow code. So I have named it as Prow because we are using the pre-submit and post-submit logic here. And then we also have the AMI build config and the AMI build config defaults configuration files, JSON files. In the AMI build config file, we will store the Kubernetes versions that we will watch for, the 3 minor releases. And in the AMI build config defaults, we will set up the default variables, default environment variables, or default packer variables that we want to execute in certain scenarios. So let's say we have this default file. In this case, we are currently not mentioning any default global value. So this default key basically means that we are going to set up the global variables in this field, right? But let's say we want to provide OS specific variables, then we can provide it as such. In case of like Flatcar, we have provided a specific container D version and the SHA-256 hash, so on and so forth. We can provide in a similar fashion, we can provide OS specific variables, packer variables in these fields. So since we don't have any such OS specific variables for will be overridden by the OS specific variables. So the precedence is having the higher priority for the OS specific variables, and there's a lower priority for the default like global variables. So the global variables will always be overridden by the OS specific variables. Then yeah, so in the custom folder, we have the custom function definitions as well as the type definitions that we are using in marshalling and unmarshalling of the JSON files. And then we have the GitHub action. This GitHub action main.go file deals with all the GitHub specific code, such as creating a pull request, creating a commit, creating a tree, so on and so forth. We have all the logic for that in this main.go file. And in the pro main.go file, we have all the logic for image builder processes. So fetching the current versions that we have in our AWS account, the current Kubernetes versions that have been built using image builder in our AWS account. We are using cluster AWS ADM for that. And at the moment we are using binary, but I will soon port it to like the package itself, just so that it can be like more modular instead of like building the binary first. There are also a few changes that I have to make. I'll have to create a pull request for that. I think I had already discussed the issue with Sedef in a previous meeting. It was related to the errors that it was returning when we are getting like empty AMI list. So it was treating it as an error instead of an informational log. So yeah, I will create a pull request for that. And so that was basically the structure. And here I've provided all the brief descriptions of all the files and folders in the repository in our action. Basically, it's just what I've mentioned here. So the AMI build config looks like this. The min1 is the latest minor release version. Min2 is the one that is just prior to that, and min3 is the one prior to min2. And these are always updated as and when there is a new Kubernetes release. We will always compare these values against the latest values for all the numbers.
Regarding this, so in the code right now, are we checking the URLs, actual Kubernetes URLs, or are we still checking the text files that we were doing for testing purposes?
Using Kubernetes, I think it's dl.kits.io/release. Right? We are using that at the moment. Even for testing purpose, we do not need our own external text files as I had previously used, because we can just simply provide, we can simply push a commit and provide a previous version, and that will trigger the periodic AMI test itself. I've also provided all the testing procedures, like what we have to do in order to test this action. So if anybody is quite new to this entire action, so they won't face much difficulty. I think I still had a few things to mention here. I'll do that. I think I just forgot about it. But yeah, so this section basically deals with all the different YAML configurations, as well as their environment variables and secrets that we need to mention. So for example, we need the secret key for AWS secret access key, as well as the access key ID, so that our environment specifically looks for the account that we have to publish the AMIs on. And this AWS AMI owner ID is going to be used inside cluster AWS ADM. I recently made a pull request which added this feature to allow passing this AMI owner ID as a flag. And using that flag, we can just, previously it was only fetching the Heptio, I think Heptio account, but now we can customize it as our own account as well using this flag. So this is something I passed in as an environment variable, just in case we change our account in the future, right? So that could be like a bit modular. And then we have the post-submit logic. It's pretty much the same as pre-submit logic, except that we have two things changed here. One is the build region and the other is the supported OS. So the default values for these are different, because in case of testing, we do not need to test it for each and every OS. We can just simply use for example, Amazon 2, and we can also use just one region, let's say US East 1, and that would be good enough for the purpose of testing the new Kubernetes version. That would also save us a lot of resources, and it would also cut costs, but definitely we can customize this because I provided this piece. We can just create a comma separated value for the versions, for the operating systems, as well as reasons that we need to test this on. So that is future proof, at least for now. But yeah, these are the two major differences in the pre-submit as well as post-submit YAML configurations. That is the supported OS and the build regions. Everything else is pretty much the same. And then we have the custom functions folder file. I think I've already touched upon this. Yeah, rest of the stuff I've already touched upon. And yeah, so for testing, we actually need, we can just simply trigger the workflows on pushing these changes. So for example, in my recent commits, let me see. In this commit, I provided these like outdated versions. So what it did was it triggered this pull request. So the periodic action actually created this pull request because I had mentioned the on push action, on push event. And once this was created, it also triggered a pre-submit job. So the pre-submit job was triggered once the pull request was created, and this pre-submit job lasted for 35 minutes, which also mentions like all the logs for the image builder. It just built image for the previous 3 minor versions. That's it. And that is also just for the Amazon 2 operating system. And it only copied it on the US East 1 region or the availability zone. And yeah, that's it. That's basically just what the pre-submit job does. And once we merge this request, the same action happens, the same workflow takes place, but in the form of a post-submit job. And even for post-submit job, I had triggered the same workflow, same as in I had only mentioned US East 1 and just Amazon 2, so that I could save upon resources. And this is the ultimate result. For the testing image, for the like pre-submit images, we have this test prefix before the image name itself. And for the actual built images that are the final product that we were looking out for, we have the Kappa AMI Amazon naming convention. So the test images are built during the pre-submit workflow, and the Kappa AMI images are built during the post-submit workflow. Yeah,
So I
these
have a question for the periodic job. So do we need to change it to on push, because not during regular operation it should periodically run. So we need to change that action, right?
Yes, exactly. That's why I mentioned this step as well. So for periodic, we will change it to on push and specifically on branches main, because we'll be looking out for pull requests that are made against the base branch as main. And the head branch would be the one that we have mentioned in the environment variables. Let me just look over it. Yeah. So the base branch here, by default, we set it to main, and the head branch would be Kappa AMI action. Just to verify that it's the same, let me see. Summary. In my case, it's test rep 2. Let me just look at the code. Yeah, it's
so we overwrite that head ref for, let's say, release 07. So we'd build for main and 07, is that right? Or however many different versions of Kappa we support. Is that right?
are you mentioning, I think, Siddharth, I forgot to mention this implementation. Are you mentioning that for different releases, we create different references?
Yeah. So I get, oh no, sorry, does this apply? So at the moment this is on main, but we can do it on the release 06. No, it's on the Kubernetes, sorry, ignore me. Yeah. It's all right.
because I think there was a similar concern, although I forgot the objective of that. But yeah, Sedef have
It's always main, right? Or
It is always main because we're talking about Kubernetes versions here, not Kappa versions. Yeah.
Yeah. Oh yeah, I think yeah. So yeah, in this case, yeah. In this case, we are only dealing with Kubernetes version. This has nothing to do with Kappa itself. Yeah, so the head branch would be Kappa AMI action. This is just the convention that I've come up with. Users can definitely just modify it according to their own will. In my case, I had just mentioned it as testref2, and the pull request was also made from the testref2 branch in this case. And it was against main as well, right? So it was ultimately merged to the main. So this is the actual purpose of this base as well as the head branch. It is easily customizable just in case the users want to like test it out on different branches. Yeah. So we can also customize the PR reviewers and the PR assignees. It's the same method here. We can just comma separate all the different reviewers and assignees, and the bot would then mention, actually assign those to the pull request itself.
I guess, can we leave those blank so that prowl stroke blunderbuss automatically assigns them?
Okay, yeah, I think in that case, we'll have to remove that logic in that case.
Yeah, maybe if it's just an empty string, then you don't assign, because yeah, prowl will assign it automatically.
What we can do, I guess, in this case is we can first unassign anyone that has been assigned to the pull request, and then we can assign the ones that we want to through these variables, through these environment variables. Although I'm not really sure if that's a right approach according to the Kubernetes convention policies.
Yeah, I would say that if you want to explicitly, then you fill them in like this. But if you want to just follow the normal assignment that prowl does, if you left it empty, maybe, then prowl does its thing, doesn't it? And blunderbuss goes, oh, actually, I'm going to look at the owner's aliases and then request a review.
Yeah, actually, yeah.
I don't know what you think.
So for AMI creation, I think maintainers should review the PRs, because do we vote on the maintainers? I'm not sure.
Well, I guess maintainers have to approve it still anyway, don't they? So they can't merge without a maintainer approving.
True. Yeah.
So yeah, I don't know. That's a minor thing. Yeah.
Yep. So I think that was just specific to the periodic action, because we had a lot of GitHub logic going on behind the scenes. Also, the GitHub token, in this case, I think I've mentioned it for like our own provided GitHub token, using the GitHub environment itself, but it won't work actually. I just forgot to mention in this document. I'll just fix it up. The approach that I have used here is a bit different. We are actually generating the token using our GitHub bot. And here we are getting the app ID, and we're also getting the bot's private key. And this is how we are essentially generating the token, because apparently there is no straightforward way to generate a token for the bots themselves. And this action is actually helping us do so. And ultimately, there's also one thing that we could do in the future, that is to build this action on our own repository, just to make it like just to have a lot more control over it. Or that's what I'm thinking at the moment.
Just to clarify, we will not need this token generation logic, but once we move pre-submit and post-submit job to pro, right?
Yeah, exactly. But I think that would also depend on if we are provided with the privileges for the GitHub token.
Yeah, so as soon as we get there, right? Oh, I see your point.
Because in this case, we can just simply add the bot to our repository and provide it whatever privileges it seeks, right? But in case of,
I guess what's the precedent for adding? So when you talk about bot, you're talking about a GitHub application, did you say?
yeah,
Or,
GitHub application.
so I guess what is the precedent for adding custom GitHub applications to the Kubernetes 6 org?
I guess, so is there a way to actually add it by ourselves, or do we have to approach the organization?
So yeah, so we shouldn't need to add anything, right? If we run this on prod itself.
Yeah.
For the periodic job, the PR will be created by using the GitHub token only.
Mhm.
And then pre-submit job will be triggered and it will use the AWS credentials on the prod. Why would we need another thing?
Yeah, this is only for like testing on our own personal repository. And the specific reason why I used a GitHub bot was that we cannot trigger workflows on pull requests created by like GitHub bots, right? So that's the basic reason why I have gone with this approach personally. But let's say that if if the KHCI robot does not really care about such implementations and it just looks for the pull requests and executes whatever like jobs that have been configured for such pull requests. If it executes them on its own instead of relying on anything like the permissions provided by GitHub token and Etzel, in that case, we won't face much issues.
Yeah,
In
it
this
will
case,
execute, just execute whatever jobs.
yeah, in this case, that GitHub bot is an issue. That's why I implemented this. Yep. So yeah, getting back to it, I think we have pretty much dealt with the pre-submit and post-submit job as well. They're pretty much the same except for the build regions and the operating systems. And then we have different files for functions types and yeah, the defaults and the AMI build config. Yeah, we have touched upon that. And just to test, we have to mention all these different like permission. I don't think we need permissions here. I'll have to edit that out. Yeah, so the post-submit and pre-submit jobs don't really require a GitHub token. They just need to execute the Go code that I have mentioned in the repository, and that is only responsible for executing the image builder. The post-submit job is only triggered for events when the pull request is closed, and that is true on when the pull request is made against the main branch. And it's also only going to be like executed once it is merged. So in case of like closing action, the actual closing action, this won't be triggered. It's only going to be triggered when the pull request is merged. So that's basically how the post submit job actually works, I guess, in Prow as well. Once the pull request is merged. So that's how I'm just trying to simulate whatever we have in Prow on GitHub itself. So in case of pre-submit, we just simply check for pull requests, check for events against events related to pull request against the main branch. And we again don't need this permission. I'll just edit that out. And yeah, there's a lot of stuff here. I've also mentioned like the actual inspiration for writing the GitHub action logic. So it's a really good reference to somebody who's getting started with GitHub API itself. It basically mentions how we can create our own commit and then change the reference of any existing, like change any existing reference to point to that commit. And this commit does not exist on your system, but rather on the GitHub servers themselves. So we are basically manipulating with the commits on the GitHub server using the GitHub API. And then we are also updating references to point to that specific commit. So this is something really cool that I found out, and it actually helped me a lot while building the GitHub action, like the using the GitHub SDK, whatever logic I was implementing. Yeah, and then migrating the pre-submit and post-submit jobs to Prow, we just have to convert all this logic into a script, and also we have to like configure all the credentials. For example, the AWS credentials, we have to configure those in the Prow itself.
Do
I
we?
believe that would.
Sorry, I was going to say, do we believe that Boscos, the credentials we get from Boscos, we would use the same ones that we use for the end-to-end test, or will this be a different lease of credentials, different AWS credentials?
So I think we will need to, because for the tests, AWS account, it generally cleans up everything. So we need a persistent account to keep the AMIs forever.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yep. So yeah, apart from that, we also have to make sure that all the different prerequisites for running these like commands, we have them set up already on the Prow environment itself. And once we are sure of that, I think we can just simply use the script for the pre-submit and post-submit jobs. And that should work fine as long as the environment variables and secrets are set up correctly. And then we have the roadblocks and limitations. Basically, the Kubernetes 6 organization apparently has some policies due to which we are not able to create pull requests using our actions. So that is a big issue here. I guess we just need to wait a while. I think I also reached out to Arnaud, but apparently he's also a bit busy. He was busy at the moment with KubeCon. Actually, most of the people were. So yeah, I think we can get in touch with the people, with the folks in the GitHub management team once again, and see if this issue can be resolved. And let's say if it's resolved, then I think the Prow jobs would then take care of the rest. But in this case, yeah, so it's the same issue that I mentioned earlier. The GitHub actions do not trigger workflows for pull requests created by Prow. I think I've already mentioned it quite a lot by now. And yeah, there's actually a bunch of things that we can improve here. So right now I'm using the cluster AWS ADM binary. Actually, this, yeah, I just mentioned about this issue related to the error. I'll make this implementation, I'll make this modification on the upstream Kappa repository for cluster AWS ADM, and then I'll just let you know. And we're using the binary instead of the package. I'll also make this modification once I'm done with this pull request. And we are currently not cleaning up the resources. So it can be a bit problematic once it is launched into the production. So to take care of that, I'll also be implementing the cleanup logic soon. And right now, for the testing purpose, just for the testing purpose, we are using this GitHub app token. I think we won't need this in production itself. Once, let's say, all the Prow configurations are done and we are done with the Prow job, with the secret management and all that stuff.
Quick question on the cleanup. So the test ones, the test AMIs, so they could they be in the same account as, you know, the end-to-end tests, so that the janitor comes along and cleans the account, whereas the real ones that on the post submit, they're in the, I guess, the permanent account, so the janitor's not going to come along and clean those up. Is that a way to help with the cleanup, or am I misunderstanding that?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea. So we don't need to deal with the cleanup. If we need to check if Boscos implements the AMI cleanup though.
Yeah, it would be worth, doing a PR to the janitor if it doesn't.
Yeah, or what we were thinking in the post-submit job and at the end of pre-submit job, we always go and clean up the tests, AMIs, but then there may be race conditions there where there are two jobs running at the same time. We go clean up.
Yeah.
But it's a rare situation, not sure.
Yeah, I can see the details are not, they can be worked out, can't they? It'll be a little while before people start moaning about the cost of the AMIs. So
Yeah.
I guess who you know, for the actual account where we're going to store these long term, who owns those accounts? Is it the CNCF?
Yeah, so we are gonna request from CNCF.
Cool. Yeah.
I don't know who to request it from, but yeah, I'm hoping I will find out someone.
Yeah, cool. Yeah, looks good, Abhinav.
Thanks for that.
Yeah,
Sadef,
great job, Abhinav. Thanks for all the work.
thank you
Yeah.
so much for the guidance, Sadef and Richard. Actually, I'm quite sure it won't be possible without you both. I was actually quite a huge newbie at back in the time. Yeah, your help has been quite much like it's priceless. Definitely. Thank you so much for all that.
I guess one question on this is the contents of this document, are they going to go into a proposal in the repo just for posterity?
Yeah, I guess we'll have to. I'm not sure if the previous LFX mentees have also done the same. Although I believe like there is some blog post or such a thing that we have to do. We have to make once our projects are finalized.
Yeah.
Right. So I guess this will serve the.
Yeah, I'm guessing I'm just more capturing from people coming to Kappa in the future, and this is all captured actually within the repo in a normal proposal. Literally, if it's just dumping it into the markdown in there, that would be good.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I can also.
Right now, there are blockers here. We need to figure out how to make GitHub token work for our periodic action. Without making the GitHub token work, none of it will work. But I mean, we need to find a way. This is or we can move everything to Pro. But still, it will need to create the PR.
Yeah.
On our report.
Yeah.
I guess if we are just going to use Prow, then we'll definitely need at least either a bot user account or a GitHub application. Because in case of GitHub Actions, we actually have the secret that we can use for creating such pull requests and with specific permissions. But in case of Prow, I don't think that runs on a GitHub environment, right? It's a different.
It does, but it does have a bot account, doesn't it? The whatever the bot's called. Be interesting to see what permissions that has. But we can follow up on that, can't we? Yeah, we can follow up afterwards. Cool. That's really good, Abhinav. Yeah.
Thank you so much, Richard.
So I'm thinking where to keep this document. Should we really convert it to a proposal and save it like that? Because it will not fit in the proposal format quite a lot as it is.
No, but I guess it would. I guess you could still just put the header text, couldn't you? The proposal number, and just have different headings if you wanted to. I guess the main thing is it's captured, isn't it, in somewhere where we could within the repo.
Yeah.
Whether that's now or in the future when certain things have been finalized.
Yeah, but it would be great if you can you don't need to follow every section in the proposal, just the heading and then whatever fits to your current document. Then we can merge it to the repo.
Yeah, sure. Definitely. Just let me know what kind of modifications you want me to do in the existing document, and
okay.
yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think literally we could just do. So if we go docs, I think probably just for the minimum amount of changes for you. Actually, to be honest, we don't have a lot of front matter at the top here, do we? It's just straight in there with the content. So really, we don't actually. Let's do. Where's it? Yeah, this is more like it. So we could literally just put that in the top of your in a markdown file with, I guess, this standard stuff, and then you could just follow the same headings that you've got currently in your doc. Maybe that would be probably the quickest way to get it in there, wouldn't it?
I guess, yes. So all the different headings have been, like, all the different sections have been defined just below these, right?
Yeah.
The table.
Yeah. And these are standard, I guess, standard ones taken from the upstream cluster API enhancement proposal format. But I think the main thing really is, I guess, this bit up top here, this bit, sorry, I should highlight it. And then obviously the table of contents is handy, but we can also generate that just based on your headings. I don't think it necessarily has to follow this strict format. I think that's just not overly helpful in this scenario.
Sure. So the upper section that you have previously highlighted, is it exactly the same, or are there any modifications and reviewers and authors?
Well, yeah, I guess reviewers and the authors would be different. So I guess you'd put Sedef and me as the reviewers, and then obviously you're the author of it. So yeah. I guess creation dates would obviously be different. Title would be different. Status would be same, implementable, I would say, wouldn't it? Or yeah. Do we have an issue for this as well?
We do, I think, right, Abhinav? Where I shared the initial design. We have an issue for this, yes.
Yep, exactly. We do have it.
Cool.
Maybe automate AMI build, something like that.
I've shared the link in chat.
Oh, did you?
Well then, yeah, a lot quicker than me.
It's the third one, I guess.
Yeah, third one.
Yeah, it is. Yeah. So you link that in that top bit as well. Yeah, cool. Yeah, that'd be really good.
Yeah, I'll just follow the convention. I'll see. So is the current documentation that I provided, are there any modifications like format wise or content wise that you would recommend?
Yeah, it depends whether you want to actually document the actual like requirements just as user stories. It's up to you, isn't it? Like, as a Kappa maintainer, I want to make sure that we have AMIs, or as a user, I guess it's not as a Kappa maintainer, is it? It's as a user, I want to be able to use AMIs, Cappy AMIs with the latest versions of Kubernetes as they are released, or something like that. But does that actually add much value?
You already have a section similar that covers it, Abhinav. You can just add it under the use cases. You have a section saying that it takes too long to build AMIs. We want a quick way to automate this process, something like that.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, I think that would do in that too.
I'll just add it as a action item. But yeah, if you want a hand, yeah, feel free to reach out.
Sure.
Cool.
Thanks.
I think given that we're actually at the time and probably some of the topics I've added, we can I can postpone those till the next meeting instead of covering them now. So I will move these across to the meeting in 2 weeks' time. Cool. I guess that's probably it, unless anyone has anything else to discuss. No. Cool. Well, yeah, once again, thanks, Abhinav. That was good.
Thanks, Richard.
That was really, really good. And I'm surprised we actually we filled the whole hour up as well. At the beginning of the meeting, I thought with the three of us, we were going to be over in 10 minutes. So yeah, brilliant. Cool.
Yeah.
Okay, well, speak to you soon. I will stop the recording.